Oh my God! None of us saw this coming. I know, I said February is going to be very significant with the Muller stuff, of course. But how amazing have the last couple of days been? It was actually worth the price of admission just to see Donald Trump's face. You could see the wheels turning. You know, he's thinking, is this good and I'm meant to say it's bad? Or is it really bad and I'm meant to say it's good? What the fuck is happening? So what has happened, of course, is I have, and I think basically the rest of the world, underestimated Muller. Even those of us who love him. What has he done? Well, he went back to basics, didn't he? Really, we'd all forgotten just about that he was actually employed to look at Russian meddling in the US elections. So he's very thoroughly pursued that. And this is the tip of the iceberg. Hello. And he's released it at a time and in such a way, under enormous pressure, to actually say to those cowardly, mealy-mouthed Republicans and everyone else, yes, there was major ongoing Russian interference. So he's taken the floor out from under them in that. Very hard to fire him now, Donald. So that's awesome. So the impact, of course, this is one of the many tributaries, and because the money laundering and the other illegal activities and the conspiracies are in these other tributaries, by laying this down now, he has paved the way of being even-handed. He's gone and done what he set out to do. Oh my God, how impressive is Muller. And a tight ship, apart from the leak from a couple of aides who unfortunately exchanged those silly, idly bitching emails. Tight ship. Oh, he is impressive. If you ever go to war, you'd want him on your side. So I am itching to see what the cards say about this, so I won't blather on anymore. So this reading is about how these particular revelations will impact on Trump and the administration, obviously. So, the Russian indictments and the impact on Trump. The Russian indictments and the impact on Trump. Russian indictments and the impact on Trump. Here we go, here we go. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay. Now, let me just make sure the cards are the right way up, and off we go. Oh, bless his little cotton socks. Aww. I'll show you in a moment. So, the main card of what will be one of my traditional Celtic cross readings. The Star, he's given us hope. Yet again, I mean, I think Muller at this stage of proceedings, and we're still at the beginning, he embodies hope. He embodies what's good about America. So as the quintessential card of the reading, the signifier, the Star, hope. Oh, delicious. Okay. Now, the issue itself, how does this lot of Russian indictments impact Trump? the Ace of Cups. So, a very potent card of emotion. This whole thing has been quite emotional, I think. I think it's emotional for America as a nation, and it's certainly made the rest of the world that is either trying to ignore the Trump circus or is adversely affected by it or even depressed by it. It's a very emotional time. This presidency is very emotional. And the loofah-faced baboon who occupies the Oval Office is an emotionally driven man. We're not talking mature emotions, but we are talking emotions here, and they're spilling over. So in a way, this card could go both ways, but it's an overflow of emotion as I see it. Across this essential core issue, the Knight of Swords. So to me, early on in the reading, this represents hasty reactions to this series of revelations. So what Muller has done is lay out a really systematic range of activities, put names to those activities in the Russian context. And can you imagine what's going on in Moscow? Okay, so there's going to be all sorts of hasty, manic reactions to this, I think, although it may not show. So the emotions are pouring out in Russia as well. They have been sprung. They, of course, will deny it and so on. But nonetheless, it's been revealed. And I think there'll be hasty reactions, both by Russians themselves trying to, within the hierarchy of the Kremlin, trying to disassociate themselves from certain players. Also in America, in terms of Republicans running for cover, suddenly you'll find a lot of Republicans always knew there was Russian interference. And these are the same people who were saying hoax, hoax a week ago. But in the White House, remember my video on the White Walkers in the White House? Can you imagine what's going on behind closed doors in Washington and in Mar-a-Lago? Okay, so here we go. Underlying it, the world. And in this case, you'd have to say it's Russia's attempt to meddle. It's not just America. The French are really worried about it. The Germans are worried about it. The Italians are worried about it. In Australia, we are too busy, apparently. Our delinquent government announced a week or so ago that we were going to become an arms manufacturing country. What on earth? There's been no public debate. Why on earth would that be the case? I don't know. But I digress. The world. So Russia has very deliberately and in some ways cleverly, in some ways crudely, but nonetheless been interfering. But also it's part of Russia's global ambition, but Putin's global ambition. So for those of you who are old enough to remember Gorbachev, Gorbachev was the head of Russia who was around the same time you had Ronald Reagan, and he was a man of the world. He wanted to, there was Glasnost, and he wanted to reach out to the West, and he wanted to modernize Russia, and he made a lot of steps towards that. Putin is not that creature. Putin is KGB. He ideologically and in his deep heart, I think, has an ambivalent relationship. He hates the West in that sense of how he sees it as diminishing Russia, and Russia should be the true superpower. But also that covetousness of a tyrant who really wants the best that the West can offer. And of course their assets, although they're frozen in many countries and they can't get their hands on a lot of money, they still can get their hands on sums of money that would make your eyes water. So the world card, the world is watching this, obviously, so the world. Okay, recent past. Ooh, I must say, my last video, which was just before these revelations, is the bromance dead? Yes, it was so dead. It is so dead. Dead is the word. There is nothing, I think, that can be brought to bear to make Putin get any more mileage out of Trump as a person. He can still buggerize around in elections and so forth, but the guy he thought he was securing is so unreliable. So that relationship was already dead. Trump too was trying to disassociate himself from everything that began with R, so he wasn't planning any more Miss Universe, sort of events in Moscow in the immediate future. So that relationship was dead. This has brought it back to life. Ah, how interesting. Now, over the lot of this reading, the Page of Pentacles. So, a curious card in this position. I have to think about this for a moment. What do I think this actually is representing here? I'm also always interested, viewers, when you have suggestions for cards too. But what's going through my mind is this. This is a younger player who's observing both of them, and I think has leadership aspirations in one or other of these countries. So it might be a younger leader in the US or a younger one in Russia, and I'm leaning a bit more towards Russia here. So a smart person, an educated person, a person who has vision. Okay, short-term outcome. Yes, the Hermit. I think both of them are going to retreat. They've both been sprung. I don't care how much surveillance Russia's been doing in America or anything else. I don't think they saw this coming, these indictments in this form. I think they were braced for the money laundering and how they were going to react to that. And I think they've, all got their Swiss bank accounts and the Canary Island accounts going and are shoring up their villas in Cyprus. But I don't think they saw this coming. So by definition, this is pulling back and a very insular sort of response, I think, both from Trump and Putin. Now, how is this going to play out? Yes. I see this. Those of you who have been following my videos will be able to make sense of this. This is the walking away card. Hermit, walking away. To me, given the question was how this is going to impact on Trump, this is part of what I've been talking about. He is withdrawing, but it's not so obvious because, as we would say in Australia, he's such a galah and he is such a narcissist that he keeps twittering on Twitter, but essentially he's pulling back. He is so out of his depth, and really, he's 71. How long can he keep paddling in the deep end of the pool? He's walking away. So don't expect him to physically disappear. I don't think that we're looking at his imminent departure, but he is retreating. He hasn't got a marriage anymore. His kids, I think, are struggling with what are they going to tell Mullah, and where does this all end up with them? His whole family has actually fractured. To what extent he's noticed is another issue. Narcissists, you know, everyone could leave the building and he'd be the last to know. Acting on that, yes, grubbiness, group work. This is not always a grubby card, but in the context of this deep muck, it is a grubby card. The black pentacles, the black money. So the Three of Pentacles, what's acting on this? You're looking at 3 here. Yeah, interesting. So there might, in fact, be a third country that's been a bit of a sleeper, bit of a hermit, bit of a sleeper in this scenario. It's easy to get caught up with the US and Russia. I'll give it some more thought and I'll get back to you if I have a brainwave. I'm having a strong feeling this is actually a third country could be dragged into this. These guys have to keep their money somewhere. Okay, the environment of this revelation for Trump, yes. Disappointment, freakout. So we're looking... He's disappointed, he's retreating, he's actually already a hermit. Now, if you look in turn at Putin, and I'm not professing to be an authority on Putin's day-to-day routine, but he doesn't strike me as someone who just kicks back with the boys. I think Putin, it could equally be said, is on some level withdrawing. Remember I was talking about the paranoia. Paranoia isolates. These are two very paranoid guys. And when egotistical, powerful men are exposed, obviously they don't like it, and they're going to pull back. And you wouldn't want, you know, talk about kicking the dog, you wouldn't want to be close to any of these guys in the immediate future. Yet short-term outcome, barking at the moon. Remember the hasty reactions. I can't begin to describe to you what I feel is the delusional reactions. The shit that will be coming out of Trump's mouth in relation, we can do this, we'll do that, we'll, you know. And with Putin it would be, where can I take them? I'll get to the bottom of this, you know, how did this happen? So, barking at the moon, delusion, such deep delusion, but also deep hidden knowledge, which we now know is being exposed, to the point where it can tip over into madness. The whole situation is quite mad, and it's beginning to be revealed as quite mad. The Spy, Page of Swords. So we had this page here. This is also youthful energy, zooming out with the swords. Here we have the Knight of Swords. This is the Page of Swords. But it is a card that's also associated with espionage. So it might not be a single younger person. It might well be more espionage. So in other words, that could be both sides will escalate the surveillance on each other, which would not be surprising. But it could be more surveillance information is revealed. The Chariot galloping forth. I twin it with this card. Again, there's this hastiness here. Both of these guys have to pretend to be strong. They've got to pretend because they're both flipping out. Okay, and although Putin is infinitely more in command of his emotions than the drivelling, self-obsessed one, they've both got to pretend they're still in control. That's what I take from this. Maybe I know. Yes, very much, brings out the hardness in both of them. But if you look, and I've discussed this card often, so I won't spend a great deal of time on it, the Nine of Cups. The other imagery, which is closed and open, right? They're both that in terms of their personalities. Hard men who make money without worrying about who they trample. But you can't ignore the emotions, which is what this card's about to some extent too, forever, because they've been thrown into this emotional ocean. So they're both uncomfortable in the emotional domain, and they can't avoid it at the moment because, thanks to Muller's strategic genius, and that, oh yes, okay, overseas commercial transactions. Look, what I will say about that is this is the entree. This whole week has been the entree. This is overseas commercial trade. And because Russia has been exposed, everyone knew, the whole world actually knew, except for Donald and some peculiar people. They didn't know the depth of it. For example, the Bernie Sanders dimension. Poor Bernie, you know. He's been played. But his story got out and his message got out. So I don't see that as, you know, hugely dramatically awful. But he would be thrown by this too. Hillary, I mean, poor bloody Hillary. She might feel vindicated, but that's not enough, is it, really? Ooh. Now, the 3. Is it 3 weeks? 3 months? I'm thinking more like 3 weeks. There will be more revelations about the international commerce and trade. We'll be back to the money dirt. As we know, Trump is not a religious man, and he's too egotistical to pray because he sort of thinks he is God. That's a bit of a handicap, really, for narcissists. But somebody should be praying for the Trump family, because very soon that side of it is going to be the focus of the next lot of revelations. We know now Gates is talking. He would possibly, Gates I'm talking about now, Rick Gates, who got arrested with Manafort. I should do a reading on him again. He's more interesting now. He's flapping the jaws. He really should watch his step, because Manafort has contacts in countries with not very nice people, and ooh. So much more to come, but I couldn't wait to share that with you. All right now, see you very soon. Bye.